Welcome everybody to our Monday night shiur. Before we start, as usual, our shiur is sponsored Leilun Ishmat Sarah Bat Chana Ruach Hashem Tenicheh Began Eden. Amen. Also, our shiur is sponsored. Where is Michael? Is he here?
No.
He left. Oh, his grandfather tried to tell me his name. Okay, he'll let me know. But usually for the Shimono family, Yisrael Ben Asher and his wife Michal Bat Hanan, their kids, Hashem should bless them with long life, prosperity, life, bracha, parnasah, refuah. And for the Pinchaso family, Simcha Ben Leah, his wife, his kids, Rufashon to his father, Reuben Ben Shoshana, Rabbi Karov. Amen. As we all heard the tragic news of the passing of the Gadol Ador of Klal Yisrael, Rabbi Yosef Chaim Kanievsky, Baruch Hashem Tenicheh Began Eden. Amen. He was the Gadol Ador. Just to give you guys a picture, I'm not gonna tell you stories of miracles and stuff like that, even though there was many instances of he used to say stuff almost like Ruach HaKodesh. Remember, we once went there. I just want to read to you guys what was his schedule. His schedule. I'm sure you guys see it, but I think it's worth reading it inside. Just his schedule. What was his daily schedule? Every morning he would wake up after Chatzot, after midnight. Every day they would start after midnight. He would say Brachot HaShachar. There's a famous video that's circulating with him saying Brachot HaShachar with his wife, and they're both answering Amen to one another. Rabbi Chai ben Rivka. He would wake up after Chatzot, after midnight. He would say Tikkun Chatzot. What would be the first thing he would learn after Chatzot, after midnight? This is all of his life he would do this.
The Zohar.
Whole life.
His whole life. 11 pages of the Zohar. First thing, 11 pages. Now you would think he's a Litai, he's Lithuanian, he wouldn't touch these things. First things, 11 pages of the Zohar. You know, he wrote a Perush, one of the only people to have a Perush, a commentary on the book that was given to Adam Harish. Some say it was given to Adam Harishon. It's called Raziel HaMalach. The book Raziel HaMalach, and some say it wasn't written by Raziel HaMalach. It's just called that. It was written by a Rishon called Rabbi Elazar HaRokeach. Baal HaRokeach. It was written about 700 years ago in the city of Worms, and by a big Mikubal Tzadik Rishon Posek. It's called Raziel HaMalach. It's all Kabbalah Ma'asit in there. How to make golems, how to do this, how to do that, how to use the 7 two-letter names of God. He has a Perush on this book. And the book before the Zohar, there's a book before the Zohar. It's called Sefer HaBahir, written by Rabbi Nechunya ben Akane. He has a Perush on this. Now, to get it to a level, to ever add a Perush on those books, people don't ever open that book. They sell it as kamiyas. They sell it as these small books, put in the babies under his pillow. He actually learned and wrote a Perush on it. Could you imagine such a thing? This is what he achieved. I was one small story I'm going to say that I heard. Look what kind of computer he was. Not that being a commuter is a big thing in Gadlut, but look how his Hatmada in Torah was. There was this rabbi in Bnei Brak. He took out all the books of the Maharal Miprag. You guys all know about the Maharal Miprag. He's the one who made the golem, right? Or they say he made the golem, quote unquote. So he took out all his books. The Maharal Miprag was from 500 years ago. He was a big tzaddik. He was Mizera David HaMelech. He was the chief rabbi of Prague. He saved the Jews from many stuff. He was considered one of the greatest Lithuanian rabbis. Maharal Miprag, one of the first. In Prague, he has a lot of books on Chumash, Nevi'im, Ketuvim, Kol Aryeh. His books are very much learned till today. In one of his books, he writes over there that Tchiyat HaMetim is going to happen from Ma'arat HaMachpelah. Where is Tchiyat HaMetim going to start? From the cave of the patriarchs. Hebron. Not Hebron. Not all of Hebron. Many Arabs there too. They're not having Tchiyat HaMetim. In the cave of the patriarchs is going to happen over there. Ma'arat HaMachpelah. Over there, where Avraham, Yitzhak, Yaakov, Adam, that's where it's gonna start. But he doesn't, right? Yeah, that's where it's gonna start, and then it's gonna diffuse to the rest of the world.
The portal.
Right. So it says that's why many people back in the day they used to wait till the bodies of their loved ones would turn into bones. Then they used to take the bones, put it in a jug, a jug, and put it by Marat HaMachpelah. Over there. Why? They said when they're going to wake up, Avraham, Yitzhak, Yaakov, how is it going to happen? They're going to wake up first. Then they're going to walk out of the cave. They're going to step on their bones, and they're also going to get up from the Tchiat HaMetim.
Wow.
That's what people used to do back then. That's why Kohanim are not allowed to go to the whole section of Marat HaMachpelah. Because that section over there, the whole thing is, there's an opening to a cave over there. It's sealed. It's on the side. That was the original opening to the cave. The thing on the top, they just built that. But on the side, that's where they used to put the bones of the people. So he writes over there, the Maharal Miprag, that the Tchiat HaMetim is going to happen from the cave of the patriarchs. Abraham, Yitzhak, Yaakov, Adam, the mothers, Sarah, Rachel, Leah, Chava. Then he doesn't write a source. And in Judaism, we don't like things without a source. You got to source it up. You got to tell me where it's from. Where does it say that? So, today, it's not like back in the day. To know something, you would have to memorize it. Today, there's a thing called, what is that thing? The Otsara Chokhmah. It's like a hard drive. All the books that you can think of, like 50,000 books are in there. All you got to do is search, type, Tchiat HaMetim, Marat HaMachpelah, it's going to show you where it says it. The guy went on it, search, nothing shows up. Doesn't come out. Gemara, Mishnah, this. What's going on? So he went to rabbis. Did you ever hear something? We never heard. Can't be the Maharal made up such a thing. One day, this rabbi, he was in Bnei Brak. He was walking through the streets. He sees Rabbi Kanievsky coming out of his famous shul, the Letterman shul. He's coming out and he says, "Oh, the person I needed to see. Maybe he knows the answer where it's written." He was a lot of midrashim. He asked him, and he's walking with him. He says, "Rebbe, do you know where it says in the whole Torah that the Tchiat HaMetim is going to start from Marat HaMachpelah?" And as he's walking, he's thinking, like he's scanning. Gemara, no. Yerushalmi, no. Midrash Rabbah, no. Like mamash, like scanning. He's saying over the story. I was shocked from what I saw. Then he's like Zohar. He starts to scan. Boom! He finds the page in the Zohar. What a computer couldn't find. Bam, bam, bam. He tells him the page. That's where the Maharal Miprag got it from. Because you're a man such a gadlut, everything he knew.
Photographic memory.
Yeah, it's not photographic memory. It's not photographic memory. This is hatmada, it's called. When you do something over and over and over again, it gets charut ala luchot. It gets engraved. Consistency. Consistency is the key. Lahavdil. How do people in medical school, all that stuff, they memorize drugs with names from the sherim? These names come from. How do they memorize these kind of names? It's consistency, it's memorization. But this is not just memorization. When you know something and you love it, if you apply it, it becomes one with you. It becomes one with you. Could you imagine such a gadlut? He knew what the computer didn't know. Once they asked him, I don't remember exactly what number it was, they asked him how many times does it says Moshe in the Torah.
Wow.
So he said 95. That's how many times? 95. Something like that. It was a number like that. Then they said, but the computer says 97. 97, 98 is on those 3 times. It's the letters Mem Shin Hey, but it doesn't spell out Moshe. It's a different vowel. And he beat the computer in that. So you see over here the galut of how he used to learn. Now this is just the Zohar he used to read. That's when he used to wake up first thing. And then right after that, what do you think he would learn next? Gemara? No, you have to start off your day reading Tehillim. 10 chapters of Tehillim. 10 kapitel Tehillim. Right after reading the Zohar. After that, 8 prakim. 10 chapters of Torah Nevi'im Ketuvim. Just reading it. With Perush Rashi probably. Then he used to learn halacha. What's after Chumash? You have to know halacha. 10 simanim of the Mishnah Brura every single day. This is every day. This is every day.
It's the same utraicha, 7 in the morning.
This is 7 in the morning. This is 1:30 in the morning. 1:30 in the morning this is. That's how he used to start off his day. After that, 8 chapters of the Rambam. This is his sketch. He used to learn Shitati. You know what Shitati is? Kavua. Wedding of a kid, this simcha, I'm not missing, no, this is my schedule, nobody's gonna break my schedule. Look at this, you know what 8 chapters of the Rambam is? I once tried to do 18 chapters of Mishnayot a day. After 2 months, I collapsed, I couldn't do it. Do you know? Look at this is just around. Then he used to learn. We didn't even get to the hard parts though. Yeah. Then he used to learn 10 simans of Tur Bet Yosef with Shulchan Aruch. People in Kollel barely do 2 simanim a day. A day. He used to do 10 Tur Bet Yosef with the Shulchan Aruch, and only then it's not done. 8 pages of Gemara.
You have to understand.
And you have to, of course, you have to understand it. And that's of the Bavli.
He knows this stuff.
And then he would do 8 pages of the Yerushalmi. And then 8 chapters of Midrash, and he used to end with a candy. What? 13 pages of Kitvei Ha'ari. The Ari HaKadosh. 13 pages every single day, and also he used to learn 8 pages of the Ramchal's work. And like this, he used to finish all these books once a year.
Wow.
He used to finish the whole Torah once a year. Once a year. Now you understand when 1 million people, close to 1 million people, come to a person's levaya. Now you understand why 1 million people come to his levaya. Do you understand what he was? Do you understand what Am Yisrael lost right now?
Right.
What we lost. So what really gets me upset, over Shabbat I heard people say, I didn't say anything.
Again?
I didn't say anything. They said, oh, okay, no, he was 94 years old. What did you expect? What do you mean he was 94 years old? Tzadikim are not allowed to die. They don't have Zuhama of the Nachash inside of them. They don't have the Tum'ah of the Nachash inside of them. When the coronavirus came, they wanted to close down all the schools for the yeshivas. He said, on me. On me, he said. Keep the schools open without Torah. There's no continuation to Am Yisrael. With one sentence of his, he kept all the schools open. What do you mean he was, what old? There's no old over here. Moshe Rabbeinu said when he was 120 years old, he was standing on the edge of Har Nevo. The mountain, you know what Har Nevo is? It's not a 2-story cliff. Har Nevo is a mountain. He stood on the top and he said, I could jump from this mountain into Eretz Yisrael and stay alive. That's how tzaddikim are. They don't have tumat nachash. They don't have the zuhama of the nachash inside of them. The tzaddikim ha'kedoshim ha'elyonim, they're supposed to live forever. Why are they taken from us, Rabbi Isai? Why are they taken? You know why Hashem takes them? Thank you. Hashem takes them when He sees that the door doesn't need them anymore. When the generation acts like they don't need Him anymore.
Oh, not respect.
Yeah. Do you know how much Lashon Hara was said about Rav Chaim in this past year? With the vaccine shots, all this,
They use his name.
and all these people, they use his name. They use his name against him. He doesn't know what he's saying. He's too old. He's too old. You know when Hashem took him? Every year he finishes this whole thing schedule that I told you. He finishes it. Erev Pesach, he makes a siyum for the Bechorot.
Oh, wow.
This year, it's a leap year. He finished it a month early. When was that? On Purim. The day after Purim, he gave his neshama. He did his last siyum, and he gave his neshama. Rabotai, you telling me he didn't know what a vaccine was? Do you understand what kind of Lashon Hara and Moti Sherma people were saying? Do you understand what I'm saying? So when we said Lashon Hara about the Tzadik, so Hashem says, you don't need the Tzadik's Hagana anymore, so I bring him up to me. What is he doing down here? Do you know what we lost over here? We lost the Haganah of Am Yisrael. Rav Sternbrach in Yerushalayim, he was doing Shushan Purim. He took off the parochet of his shul in the middle of his Seudat Purim. It's one of the big poskim today. Wow. He took off the parochet of his shul in the middle of Shushan Purim. He said, stop the Purim Seudah.
Why?
Stop. The tzaddik like this passes away. How could you be happy? How could you drink wine? How could you... It was a big makkah. Rabbi Yehuda says, when they were doing the Hespedi, I'm going to read the Gemara here right now, just to show you. You know, first I'm going to read the Gemara that reminds me of Rabbi Yehuda afterwards. The Gemara says like this. The Gemara Masechet Moed Katan, which not long ago they made the Siyum. The Gemara in Masechet Moed Katan says, Kinach Nafshed, page 25. Kinach Nafshed Rabbi Abahu. Rabbi Abahu was a big Amorah. Very big tzaddik. He was an Amorah. One of the writers of the Gemara. Whoever learns Gemara sees Rabbi Abahu's name all the time. When Rabbi Abahu passed away, they didn't say, oh, he was old. Chas v'shalom. I think it's apikorsut to speak like that, if you ask me. I think, what's apikorsut? We learned about this. Hamizalzel betalmidei chachamim. I remember when I went to meet Rav Chaim, I saw him only one time in my life. I was with Michael over here. We went, how many years ago it was? 15 years ago? Yeah. How many years ago it was?
6-7 years.
No, that's it? No, I'm married for 8 years. More. It was before I was married.
10, not 15.
Nah, it was long ago. I was right after high school, I think. Anyways, we went to see Rav Chaim. We went to his room. Remember, we were the first ones to see him that day.
Yep.
It was me, you, my father, and your son. We went to see him. We were the first ones to see him that day. I remember he didn't even walk into the room. How we were shaking. How we were shaking.
Legs like a flag.
Like it was, like the Zohar says, when the Shekhinah came down on Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, it says, "Va'arkuvatan dan ledan nakshan." The kedusha you felt from him. Of course, he was the one with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. He was one with the Torah Kedusha. He cared nothing but. In all this, I heard a speech from his daughter today. She said he was the best father. Some Talmidei Chachamim, when they learn Torah, they forget about their family. They forget. What? He's always learning. He's in the mood. He could raise his kids. Now it's all in the wife's back. He said he was the best father. He used to visit us every Chanukah. We wouldn't come to visit him. He had 8 kids. 1 kid every day of Chanukah he used to go visit. He used to walk to their house. Every single Chanukah he would take out of his schedule to go visit to the each kid. Once he had 4 sons, 4 daughters.
Wow.
His third son, Rav Shlomo Kanievsky, his name is Rav Shlomo. He's a Rosh Yeshiva of a big yeshiva called Kiryat Melech. And the famous story, I'll tell you a story, interesting story. He has a book on Sigulot, Rav Chaim Kanievsky. Many people used to come to him for brachas. He used to give them a Sigula or something, and right away, Mida Keneged Mida from the Gemara. He has a book on that. All the Sigulot from the Gemara. It says one time, one person came to Rav Chaim. He said, I was in a hotel, and I opened up the window. In the window was a bird's nest. Bird's nest. Right away, Kan Tzipor. It's public domain. It was on the balcony, not on the balcony, on the AC over there. We did a Kan Tzipor, and he's coming to talk of Chaim Kanievsky. Chaim Kanievsky started to laugh. He was laughing. He said, I remember when I was learning in Kolel Chazon Ish, small Kolel in Bnei Brak, that we also found a bird's nest in the back of the yeshiva. Now the halacha is when you send away the bird, let's say the bird comes back, you could do it again. Because all of us in the yeshiva, 4 or 5 guys we were, in the kollel, we all did the Shiloh Haken. That year, all of us had baby boys.
Special girl.
And special. And he pointed to his 3rd son, the Rosh Yeshiva. He said, this son was born from that mitzvah, the Shiloh Haken. He always used to say, if a person wants to have a child, he should be Mekayim mitzvah, Shiloh Haken. So every big sigula for be zocheh leprei reviya. That's what he said. So he said, another crazy story, just, when you speak about the tzaddikim, the stories come in. I don't even know if we're going to get to the Gemara, but I got to say this next story. This story I heard 4 or 5 years ago. Now it's becoming famous again. I didn't just hear the story, I saw the story. It was a famous video. What they call Nes Mitzulam. And it has to do with this year. This year in Israel, Shvi'it is Shemitah year. Not all the farmers keep Shemitah in Eretz Yisrael. Some of them do, some of them don't, but the religious ones obviously do. There's this one guy, he kept the Shemitah, and he started to work in some other place called Otzar Beidin. The Beidin, Kabutabi, buys all the fields, and he's working for the Beidin just to make some money, just to make some revach for that year. He can't work the land. While he was working there one day, there was a Thai worker from Thailand, and it was him, this farmer, Jewish farmer, and the Thai worker, illegal worker. He was walking up the sulam, the ladder, slipped, fell, got paralyzed. No, the rabbi, the Jewish guy is there. The Thai worker goes up, boom, falls, mishutak. Now, one thing didn't stay mishutak, his brain. He was still able to talk. So he went and he sued. Now, who's he gonna sue? Who was the only one there in the room with him? the Jewish guy, the farmer who was keeping Shemitah. The Torah says, you keep my Shemitah, I'm going to keep you. So he goes to Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky and he says, this guy is suing me for millions of shekels. He said, it's not even my thing, I was just working there like him. He says, how long you've been inside the Shemitah, the case? 14 years. This is 2 cycles ago. I'm still fighting with the lawyers. The lawyers are trying to get me to pay this guy, get to his scam. Settlement. I don't have money to pay him. So Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky starts to laugh. You can see this video. He starts to laugh. He says, tell your lawyer to tell the guy's lawyer that you're going to give him a pruta. You know what a pruta is? 3 cents. Because I'm willing to pay not 3 million shekels, 3 cents. He tells Rav Chaim, I'm going to tell the lawyer I'm going to pay. These guys are suing me for 14 years. Rav Chaim laughs, takes out of his pocket, says, I'm going to give you the pruta. I'm going to give you the shekel. He takes the shekel, gives it to him. He says, take this shekel, tell your lawyer that you're willing to pay the pruta, this shekel. He comes back 3 months later. He says, Rav Chaim, it's a mitzvah, by the way, when a miracle happens, you to come back to the Rav and say thank you. First of all, it shows you believe in him. Second of all, it shows you believe in the bracha. Third of all, it shows that you have no ga'ava. Many people, they get the Yeshua and they say, I did it. It was all me, right? He goes to Rav Chaim and he says, I came to give you good news. He didn't even remember him. He says to him, remember the story that happened? He says, knew what happened. He said they accepted the offer. They took the shekel from me and they closed the whole case. And he said, he shows the rabbi that Rav Chaim Kanievsky is there, he's laughing. He's laughing. It's Nes. He tells him, I came to give you back the shekel.
Wow.
He gave to him, I want to give you back the shekel. And then he says to Rav Chaim, now give me back the shekel. I want to take the shekel. Wherever I go, I want to show everybody what's the power of the Tzadik, of the Baruch. Could you imagine? This was the kind of person we love. These miracles you hear from ages ago, from hundreds of years ago, you hear this kind of stuff. This was Rav Chaim, Rabbi Shmariah Yosef Chaim. Could you imagine that tzaddik that we lost? I want to read you what it says over here about Rabbi Abahu. The Gemara says, Kinach nafshed Rabbi Abahu. When Rabbi Abahu passed away in Israel, Achitu amudei de Kisarim Maya. The pillars, he used to live in Caesarea. You know Caesarea, Caesarea? There was big pillars over there. The pillars started water coming out as if they were crying. The city was crying that it lost the tzaddik. Then the Gemara says, when Rabbi Yossi passed away, Rabbi Yossi, Shafe'u merzavei de Tzipore dama. The gutters of Tzipori, the city that he lived in, Tzipori, was filled with blood. The water turned red, like it was blood. The Tosfot explained over here because he gave his life that the people of Tzipor should keep the mitzvah of Brit Milah. Wow. So the city was crying, who's going to over here right now be Mekayim the mitzvah of Brit Milah for these people? When Rabbi Yaakov passed away, look, when a tzaddik passes away, the world cries. The world knows better what it missed than us. When Rabbi Yaakov passed away, itchamiu kochavei bimama. They saw stars in the daytime. That means, Rashi explains, the world became dark. Eclipse. And they were able to see stars inside the sky. The Gemara continues, when Rabbi Asi passed away, iyakru kol ilanaya. All the trees were broken and they fell in the city, as if in a sign of mourning. Kinach nafshei de Rabbi Chia. When Rabbi Chia passed away, nechitu kafei dunra merkia. Fire, hail of fire came down from Shamayim to cry of the passing of the tzaddik. When Rabbi Menachem Rabbi Yossi passed away, ishtaiu tzelamanaya va'avu lemechalatzaya. All the statues of the king inside the city became pshach. As if when he passed away, he let out this kind of force and he smashed all the avodah zaras inside the city. It says over here, when Rabbi Eliashiv passed away, 70 tunnels of ganavim came into the city. Rashi explains when this rabbi, Rabbi Eliashiv, was alive, all the ganavim in the city were tzaddikim. Suddenly when he passed away, their mind reverted back to their Yetzer Hara, and they all started to become ganavim again, hiding under, digging tunnels. Look at the shefa of the tzaddik, especially when you have a tzaddik that's a yesod olam. You know, this week we read about the deaths of Nadav and Avihu. It's not a coincidence that they pushed his burial for this week when they buried Nadav and Avihu. Where it says, what does it say? Benadav and Avihu, Bikrovai ekadesh. In the passing of a tzaddik, my name becomes great, says Hashem. Why? The world sees what kind of kiddush Hashem. This kind of levayat doesn't happen for the goyim. When they pass away, they can't even find a minyan. They can't say kaddish. But when something like this, the world sees. Look what the Jews do when their Torah goes away. Look what they do. Million people come just to say their last respects. Goyim talked about it. All the Israeli tikshoret, even I think the news over here mentioned Mayor Adams, that the Schwarze. He tweeted, the world lost a great giant of the Torah. A New York City mayor tweets such a thing.
It's crazy.
Why? Why does he tweet? First of all, he needs the political backing of the Jews over here. Second, but to see that, what's the connection? By the way, when Rav Ovadia Yosef, when Balazio, Balazio, the Satan, when he was running for the mayor, he gave he was pro Rav Ovadia Yosef, and I remember all over the post that day, Balazio backs racist rabbi, all over because Rav Ovadia Yosef is Aravim, Yehudim, all the people here are liberal, they're pro-Palestinians. You understand? But look to see the goy, the mayor knows that he has to back. That he has to know who the biggest Talmid Chacham is to get the backing of the Jews. Because who's our crown? Who's our ateret? Who's our hat? Who's our tzaddik? Who's our crown, if not our tzaddikim? Who's our connection to Hashem, if not the tzaddikim? Who are they? Look, the world is crying when the tzaddikim pass away. Look what it says over here. Kinach nafshei de Rav Hamnuna. When Rav Hamnuna passed away, came down kifei de barda. Hailstones as big of a fist came down from Shamayim to show what the world is missing. And over here, the Gemara continues. When Abai and Rava passed away, the gesher, the bridge of the city of Neharda collapsed to show that it was mourning for the passing of the tzaddik. So when a tzaddik passes away, I want to read you a Gemara Masechet Yevamot over here. In the time of David HaMelech, there was 3 years no rain. 3 years no rain. When back then it wasn't that they had water reserves. When there was no rain, you're done. There's a famine. Mamash a famine. No, there's no food. There's no grain. There's no food. The Gemara says, you know why there was a famine? I'm going to read it to you inside Bli Neder, but if I don't, because when Shaul HaMelech passed away, they didn't eulogize him correctly.
Wow.
Do you imagine what I'm saying over here? David HaMelech was held accountable that his father-in-law, who was also his rodef, who was going after to kill him, was liable. He had to eulogize him correctly. You think he didn't eulogize him? He probably eulogized him better than everyone else. But he didn't eulogize him enough. So it's our responsibility when tzaddik passes away. We have to speak about it, understand what we miss, speak his Torah. To know his Torah, it says when he passed away, who was maspid, and you guys all know Rav Yitzchak Zilberstein. We always see the stories from Aleinu L'Shabea, right? That's his brother-in-law. They both married the daughters of Rav Elyashiv.
Wow.
Rabbi Zilberstein was the first one to be maspid him, to eulogize him this past Sunday. And he said over there, when Rav Chaim Kanievsky, when he was writing a book, he used to write a book a lot on the Rambam. He has a Perush on the Rambam, like the Mishnah Brura. He wrote over there on the kosher grasshoppers.
Oh, yeah.
Kosher grasshoppers. What's a kosher grasshopper? We don't eat kosher. We don't eat grasshoppers, but there are grasshoppers that are kosher. They're like fish. Fish, do you need to do shchita on them? No. Also, grasshoppers, you just fry them, put them straight inside the oil, fry them, and pop them in like popcorn. Like this. Next Monday night, grasshoppers for dinner. No. Rav Chaim ben Attai was the Rosh Yeshiva of Morocco, one of the Rosh Yeshivas. He went against the grasshoppers. He went insane on them. He didn't allow them to eat the grasshoppers. In Teman, till not long ago, they used to eat grasshoppers, certain grasshoppers. Now the Torah gives certain simanim. What's a Ashkenazim? They didn't have no grasshoppers in Europe. They don't have grasshoppers over there. So Rav Chaim didn't know how the grasshopper looked. He wanted to see a grasshopper. He's learning Torah. He wants to know how a grasshopper looks. So he's writing his book. I think it's called Karnei Chagav, something Chagavim. He was writing his book. Then he tells his daughter, could you go find me a grasshopper? Maybe go ask some Temani rabbi out of the where do you find these grasshoppers? She goes, I can't find no grasshopper. Where am I going to go? I don't even know where to look. We never left Bnei Brak in our life. They said, you can't find. He's writing from knowledge, not from actuality. He finishes his perush, and what flies into his room, right on his sefer? a grasshopper. He looks at the grasshopper, exactly the simanim that's written in the Torah. Do you know that kind of stuff? You know who that used to happen for? The Baalei Tosafot. The Baalei Tosafot. 800 years ago, the Baalei Tosafot, when they were learning about grasshoppers, same miracle happened. And when his father-in-law, Rabbi Kanievsky, heard that, he said, Rav Chaim is like one of the Rishonim.
Wow.
We had a rabbi in our midst from one of the Rishonim. Could you imagine? Wow. Could you imagine, Rabotai? It's just that unfortunately he has to pass away for us to understand his Gdula. For us to understand what we're missing. That's why Hashem does that sometimes, so we should know what we're missing. And we should also try to be like him, to emulate him. Now, who's going to make up for all the Torah that we're missing? Who's going to make up for it? We have to make up for it, Rabotai. When Rav Aliyah passed away, we said that. When Rav Elyashiv passed away, we said that. When Rav Vosner passed away, we said that. We're losing Gedolim really quickly, Rabotai. It says, En ben David ba'at shichlu kol hachachamim. But who said, we were always waiting, Rabbi Kanievsky, in the last 4 years of his life, 5-6 years, he always used to tell everybody, make Aliyah to Eretz Yisrael. Always. When the corona happened, they closed the gates to Israel. For us, we were celebrating Purim. Over there, they were already in lockdown. In the Purim. People from France, a lot of Jews from France, they have houses in Israel, they wanted to come back home, but the problem was if they would come home, they would be in what? In isolation. They would miss Parashat Zachor. Parashat Zachor is, according to many poskim, the Oraita. So they asked Rav Chaim Kanievsky, it's Mitzulam. It's not like I'm saying from a second hand. I'm saying it's Mitzulam. It was on video. They asked him, should we stay in France and hear Parashat Zachor, or should we come to Eretz Yisrael, stay in isolation and miss Parashat Zachor? Guess what he said? You have to come back to Eretz Yisrael. That's what he told them. Psak halakha, and they did. They came back to Eretz Yisrael. He used to say, there's a famous Gemara, that all the mitzvot of the Torah were mainly written for a person living in Eretz Yisrael. That's where the real emunah is. He never left Eretz Yisrael in his life. All the other Rishon Litzion, the others, he had to do. There's a certain ma'alav at Tzadik. If he never leaves Eretz Yisrael, he's like Yitzchak Avinu. He's like an Olat Mima. There's a certain ma'ala for a person who never leaves. But the problem is, there are some people who live in Eretz Yisrael, but they're really chutz ha'aretz. And some people who are in chutz ha'aretz, and really their mind is where? In Eretz Yisrael. So you have to know how to connect the right way. I want to read you a Gemara over here. An amazing Gemara. It says over here. Just to give you, how are we supposed to look at the death of a tzaddik? I want to tell you, when he passed away, it was Friday. He passed away. It was Friday. It was Shushan Purim. We had a very big hangover. We woke up because after the Su'udah, I went home. I did my own little Su'udah to Shushan Purim to connect. And over there, I really passed out. So I woke up. It was kind of a headache. And I hear Rav Chaim Kanievsky passed away. Right away, I was b'shigaon. Why? I always said to myself, Rav Chaim always spoke about the Geula. I always thought, as long as we have this tzaddik, for sure, Mashiach is going to come in his time. When he passed away, it was a shocker to me. I said, he passed away right now. Ruach Hapeinu, Mashiach Hashem, Nilkat B'shchitotenu. As the pasuk in Yirmiyahu says, what are we going to do now? He was the Megen Hador. When Rav Ovadia passed away, we had a little Nechama. We had Rav Chaim. Like Rav Yudah Ptaya says, when Rav Ben Ish Chai passed away, we had Nechama. Why? Rav Shimon Agassi was still alive. When Rav Shimon Agassi passed away, then all the tzarot came to Bavel. And all the Iraqi Jewry slowly left Bavel. Wow. When Ben Ish Chai passed away, what happened in Bavel? The Jews were exempt from the army. They were exempt. When Ben Ish Chai passed away, the Ottomans were ruling that time, the Turks. They put the thing, all Jewish men must come to the war. But still they didn't implement it. When Rav Shimon Agassi passed away, they forced all the Jewish boys inside the army. Some of them lost their Judaism, they lost their identity, took them by force. And the Gihon River, there's a river that flows through Baghdad, Gihon, it overflowed, people lost their wealth. Rabbi Yudah says, because these two tzaddikim were megen on the city, they were megen on it. Without them, all the tzarot came. You don't understand what you guys are doing when you come listening to a shiur Torah, hearing a hesped on the tzaddik. It says in the Gemara Masechet Ketubot, whoever was be'ashkafte the Rebbe is ben olam haba. The Gemara Masechet Ketubot, when Rebbe passed away, Rabbi Yehuda Anasi, they said they made him a hesped for 12 months straight. For 12 months straight, they made him a hesped. You know what 12 months straight? 30 days, day and night, and the rest of the months, 11 months, only in the day. Some only in the day, some only in the night. But they mentioned him for 12 months. They gave the whoever was be'ashkafte the Rebbe, who ben olam haba. whoever was in the levaya of Rebbe was ben olam haba automatically. Could you imagine just by going to a levaya? The Tzadik is megan on the people. He wants to connect with the people. Especially a Tzadik that passed away in the thing of Nadav Avihu in the parasha, where it says, Bikrovai Kadesh. V'so Nadav Avihu. The Aliyah Gadol says, I don't remember where he says this, but he for sure says this. Either him or Rabbi Kanievsky says this. He says that when a Tzadik passes away, and you see that the whole world is talking about, some tzaddikim, they pass away, you never hear about him. Did you guys hear when the Chalban passed away 4 years ago? You guys even know who the Chalban is? You hear sometimes for me, I talk about the Chalban. Big Mikubal, big tzaddik, the Chalban. He also had Ruach HaKodesh, by the way. But you guys never heard how he passed away. He passed away 4 years ago. Did you guys hear when when Rav Wosner passed away? No, probably none of you didn't hear. Rabbi Yashiv? No.
Yes.
Some heard, some did. More. But this, of Chaim, Rabbi Ovadia, for example, everyone heard about it. The whole world heard about it. Why? Rabbi Kanievsky writes, whoever passes away like that, the whole world knows about it. First of all, the whole world needed them. The whole world needed them. Second of all, it's because the world is connected to their Shoresh Neshama. Because he covered the world. Wow. The whole world heard about it. The whole world is doing right now. The whole world is doing spending money.
No, his power.
Of course, and it says whoever tzaddik is like that, he's the yesod of that generation. Wow. He's the yesod, and some are the da'at of that generation. The da'at. Who's gonna take that spot to fill that spot? You really have to be. You have to be anav. I was reading one of the halachot from Rav Chaim. It says in the halachot over there, something amazing. He writes, the Gemara says in Pirkei Avot, Heve mekabel kol adam besever panim yafot. Always when you meet somebody, have a smile on your face. It's a Shulchan Aruch. It's a Pirkei Avot. So Rav Chaim asked a question. Let's say I don't like this guy. On one hand, I can't lie. Right? On the other hand, it says, Have mikabel kol adam b'sever panim yafot. Rav Chaim writes, Kol adam. What's kol adam? Even the people that you don't like. And he says, when you mikabel them b'sever panim yafot, you become, you mekayim a mitzvah from the Torah. You mekayim mitzvah from the Torah. I had a chidush on that. What was my chidush? It says, when we learned Aliyah Kadosh, it says over there, there's 2 names of Hashem. When we get those powers of those names, it's like Hashem is looking to us from the face. When Hashem doesn't shine to us from those 2 names, it's like He's turning His head to us. Like we see a lot in the Torah, Hashem says, I will turn my face from you. It's a mashal, right? It's a mashal. Hashem doesn't have a face. But it's called hashgacha, hanhaga. When Hashem is open with you, it's like He's turning His face to you, right? So when it's mida keneged mida. When you're mekabel kol adam besever panim yafot, what happens automatically? Hashem is also mekabel you besever panim yafot, and you get the shefas of those 2 names, which is Aleph Lamed, which is the Shin Ayin Vav Nehorim, 376 lights, which is the Soda Panim Elyonim, and you get the power of Chesed Elyon. That's why it says, Heve mekabel kol adam besever panim yafot. All the people besever panim yafot. That's what Rav Chaim Paskin in his Sefer. Another chidush I'm going to tell you in the halacha, he says, I don't know what Rav Ovadia says about this, but I saw he has a book called Dat Noteh. Halachot, Shelot Tchuyot. All of Rav Chaim's questions and answers on halacha, were 4 words. Yes, maybe, no, and it looks like it. Yeah. That's how he used to answer questions. He would never, Rav Ovadia, when he used to answer a question, you could write a book on one of those questions. Literally, it's like 7 pages, fine print. You understand? Rav Chaim would never answer that. Always yes, no, maybe, it looks like it. Well, that's what he says. He asked him a question over there. In the book Dat Noteh, his son asked him a question. He says, let's say I'm going to the minyan. What is considered praying with a minyan? So Rav Chaim answered, praying with a minyan means when you're davening Shmona Yisrael with them. Not necessarily you started with them, you ended with them. Praying with a minyan means as long as you catch them in the middle of the Shmona Yisrael and you daven Shmona Yisrael with them. That's praying with the minyan, he writes. So he says, let's say one guy over there, he's mikaven, he doesn't, I'm just juicing up the question of it. This is not how the question was over there. Let's say one guy, they're all davening, and they all finish quickly. But there's 20 guys, let's say, in the minyan. 20 guys. 19 finish like that. But one of them is doing kavanot harashash. He's davening for 30 minutes over there, Shmona Yisrael. And then one guy comes later on, and that guy's still davening Shmona Yisrael, and he davens Shmona Yisrael with him. Is he considered like he prayed with the minyan?
Why not?
Yeah.
Well, don't tell me why not. That no.
Yeah.
That is no.
It looks like it.
Yeah, he said it is considered from the Mishnah Berurah. It's like considered praying with the minyan. Yeah, even if you catch one of the guys who started with the original group and you daven with him, it's like you pray with the minyan. That's what Rav Chaim said. Well, amazing halakha. It's a gishmak halakha. I love it. I liked it. I saw it. I liked it.
What if you miss man?
Huh?
What if you miss
We're not talking about that. Those guys we're not talking about. Those guys we need to do, we gotta clean them up over there. You have to meet this man. Especially now. Zman is like 11 o'clock. You can't miss it at this point. Yeah, no, they're gonna close daylight savings time. If they're gonna do it. I don't think it's gonna pass. But if they're gonna do it, Nets is gonna be in the winter time like 8 o'clock. I don't know how the guys who go to work in all these companies, how they're gonna make it. They're gonna try to break it. Hopefully it doesn't pass because they're gonna mess up with the shacharit. Anyways, back to what we were saying for the Rav Chaim. I want to read you a Gemara. What time is it? Oh, okay, 5 more minutes and we'll let you go. It's an amazing Gemara. It says over here, it's the last Gemara of Masechet Sotah. We talked about what happened in the world when the Amoraim passed away. What happens in the world spiritually when the Tzadikim passed away? Spiritually, does something get cancelled out in the world? We're going to get to the dinim in a second. Mishemet Rabban Yochanan, when Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai passed away, batla chokhmah. Nobody could ever say that he has wisdom.
Wow.
Spiritually, the generation lost the ability to be real chachamim. He was the last true Baal HaChokhmah. Kishemet Rabbi Eliezer, when Rabbi Eliezer HaGadol passed away, Nignaz Sefer Torah, the last walking Sefer Torah, passed away. He was the true last walking Sefer Torah.
Even if you have the kids and continue.
Don't worry, even if he had kids, even though we had big tzaddikim in our generation, but compared to him, it wasn't considered. Compared to him. Mishemet Rabbi Yehoshua, when Rabbi Yehoshua passed away. Batla Etza, the last of the great true advisors. Umachshava, great thinkers. Batla, the last of the great thinkers and advisors passed away. Person that can give you advice. I have a problem, Rabbi. What should I do? Gives you, do A, B, C, D. And when Rabbi Yehoshua passed away, Rabbi Yehoshua said, Mi amai lo nitzchani adam. In my life, nobody ever beat me in a debate.
Wow.
When they used to have a fight with the minim, with those philosophers, they used to send only one. Only one man could do the job. Rabbi Yehoshua. Mishemet Rabbi Akiva, when Rabbi Akiva passed away, Batla zero'e Torah v'nistatmu ma'ayanot ha'chokhmah. When Rabbi Akiva passed away, the hands that hold up the Sefer Torah, which means the last person who could find a reason for all the mitzvot of the Torah, that he holds up the Torah, passed away. Mishemet Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. When Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah passed away, Batlu atarot ha'chokhmah. The last rich Talmid Chacham passed away. Talmid Chacham has to be rich. You know that, right? He has to be. Monetarily.
Of course.
But unfortunately, there's a lot of aniyim. He used to give just his ma'aser. His ma'aser from his calves was 10,000 calves. That's a lot of calves. That's a lot of money. That's just his calves. 10,000. That's how rich he was. Mishemet Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa. When Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa passed away, Batlu anshe maaseh. The last of the great miracle workers passed away. All miracles compared to Rabbi Kanievsky, he made vinegar light like oil. He once sent his goats to bring back bears. Yeah. The bears were eating the people's animals. So his wife tells him, listen, we got a couple of goats here. If they take our goats, we're done. He says, don't worry. Everything's gonna work out. The next morning, each one has a bear stuck in his horn.
With a snake.
That's a different story, but this is, for him, that was Semmichki, right? He said, tell Hashem, rain, don't rain. That was Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa. Mishemet Abba Yosef ben Katnuta. When Abba Yosef ben Katnuta, I like that name. Abba Yosef ben Katnuta. We had a candle for him. When Abba Yosef ben Katnuta passed away, Batlu Hasidim, the last of the true Hasidim passed away. Who are we, Rabbi? Say, compared to them, we're 1,000 years after. Yeah, about 1,000 years after them. Who are we? And we're losing our Chachamim. Imagine what we have lost. We're losing the last Sridim. The last drops we're losing. And why was his name Ben Katnuta? Abba Yosef Ben Katnuta, because he was the smallest of the Hasidim. Wow. Imagine who were the major Hasidim. Do you know the Gemara says the first Hasidim, they knew how to calculate when their wives would give birth. That way they would get them pregnant. It shouldn't fall on Shabbat or Yom Tov. They wouldn't do Chilul Shabbat. Does you know who the original Hasidim are? This is Abba Yosef Ben Katnuta.
Next level.
This is the next level. Mishemet Ben Azai, when Ben Azai passed away. Batlu Shakdanim, the last learners of Torah. And how do you say a Shakdan means a guy who doesn't waste a moment. He just learned. The guy. He loved Torah so much he couldn't even get married. He was Rabbi Akiva's domot, but he couldn't stay married to her. He said, I can't stay married. I need to learn. When he passed away, the last of the true, and we said Rav Chaim learned. Imagine what Ben Azai was. Mishemet Ben Zoma, when Ben Zoma passed away, Shimon Ben Zoma, Batlu Darshanim, the last true speech givers passed away. Mishemet Rabban Shimon Ben Gamliel, Rabu Atzarot. When Rabban Shimon Ben Gamliel passed away, that's when all the tzarot started to come with Klal Yisrael. Mishemet Rebbe, when Rabbi Yehuda passed away, Batlaha Anava V'yirat Chet. The last true humble person and fear of God person passed away. Do you understand now what it means to lose the tzaddikim? This is just 4 lines from the Gemara. The Gemara goes on by more tzaddikim, this, that. There's a chidush over here of the Amoraim. I want to read you the Gemara. And I want to say, Rabotai, that the Gemara says over here, it's an amazing Gemara. This Gemara is to give a shiur just on this Gemara, but I don't have time. I'm just going to give you 2 lines from this Gemara. But it's just worth hearing on the outside. Just on the outside, what went on in this Gemara. It says, David HaMelech is already king. So charasho. He defeated his enemies. Like it says by Yaakov Avinu, he wanted to live happily. Right away comes Yosef. Suddenly, no rain. Everything is done. So he says, the Torah says, if you serve, we read every morning, Hishamru lachem, right? Pen yifte levavchem, v'sartem v'avadetem Elohim acherim, v'shtachvitalem, v'atzar et hashamayim. When does Hashem send no rain? When there is avodah zarah, right? So David HaMelech says, there's 3 years, no rain. Maybe you guys are serving avodah zarah in secret. He sends secret police to check all of Am Yisrael. Not one guy is serving avodah zarah. Wow. Just put that into context. In his time, he couldn't find one person who did avodah zarah. Back then, avodah zarah was like a person looking at I don't want to say today. That's how it was lahut for this Yitzhak. So he says, okay, maybe the reason why there's no rain, maybe you guys over here are doing. I'm gonna read you the word over here. I don't want to say it myself, but if I read it inside, Shema yesh bachem ovre avera. Shneemar umetzach isha zona hayalach. Maybe you guys are doing shtuyot in the, I don't want to say those promiscuous places. So why, that avera causes a person to lose his parnasa. And what's parnasa? Rain. Why? It says over there, you have the forehead of Aisha, the Z. What does that mean, a forehead of hers? She has a very hard forehead. it's a mashal. She sees many men. It doesn't matter to her. So too Hashem turns the Shamayim into iron, and the rain doesn't come down. And look what he does! He sends people to check all of Klal Yisrael. Not one of them does averot. Do you see what the Jews were at the time of David HaMelech? And it's amazing. Then he says the next thing. Maybe you guys promise to give tzedakah in public and never pay. And the Torah says if you do that, you don't have a rain.
Wow.
And he checked all of Klal Yisrael. Everybody pays their bills. Just the context of this Gemara is amazing. So David HaMelech says, if I can't find any of these averot, it must be the problem. What does the leader really have to say? Is in me. And he asked the Urim Tumim, and it says over there, because you didn't eulogize Shaul HaMelech correctly, properly. And there was another avera. I'm not going to say it right now, but I just wanted to bring out the point of the eulogy. When Hashem, not only did we lose the Tzadik, but you don't care that you lost the Tzadik, that's a bigger avera. That's a bigger avera. So what's the nafkamina on this? I'm going to tell you the nafkamina. The nafkamina is like this. If you hear, chas v'shalom, the person says, oh, he was 94. Oh, Beseder happens. You have to stop that person. And you have to say, if you could remember the shiur, you tell them over the shiur. But if not, you send them the link. And if not that, you have to say, at Tzadik, when you lose at Tzadik, that's when the tzarot come to this world. He's our Haganah. If we had a zechut, he would have lived till 120 plus. And we would have seen him with Mashiach Tzidkenu. May we be zocheh to see him very soon at Tchiyat HaMetim. May his zechut be megen aleinu. May we be zocheh lebracha, להצלחה, ישועות גדולות. May we be zocheh לכל הנכמות שכתובים בספרי נביאים הכתובים. וכן יהי רצון ונאמר, אמן. רבי חנניה בן עקשיא אומר, רצה